Hey everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another Estes rocket build video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be building the Roto Rocket, which is an all new, to me at least, design of a recovery system. This is considered a beginner model. I don't believe there's any painting involved. I think it's pretty straightforward as far as the aesthetics go. But what makes this unique is obviously, as you can see, it breaks off into two halves at apogee, and the booster comes down under chute, but the top part comes down like a helicopter. So it's got a rotor blade, so it's called the Roto Rocket. It says it can do up to 500 feet on a C5.3, or I'm sorry, a C6.3. Probably do a little bit better with a C5. But let's go ahead and get into it. It looks like it's got a lot of parts to it. So we'll do our inventory as usual. So let me get the bag open up. Pull the face card out. I always like to admire the beautiful artwork they do on those. Okay, I've got our instructions, all the parts. Looks like there are some sub-assembly bags here, so let's go ahead and cut these open so we can access them later for our inventory. Okay. Oh, nose cone was hiding inside the tube there. Looks like we have a pre-mounted launch lug and shock cord. All right, so let's take a quick look at the parts list here, and we'll go through our inventory. Okay, first up we've got the fin can, and there's two halves to it. So let me find the blue, I think it's blue. The blue halves to our fin can. Okay, we have A and B. C is going to be our engine locking ring. D is going to be our 3 plastic fins. E is going to be our main body tube with the launch lug attached. And F is going to be our 6-inch body tube. Right there. Now we've got 2 sets of blades, depending on the degree. Let's see which is which here. Not sure how they're labeled. I don't see any label on them. Oh, yes we do. We got 6 here. So that's going to be our 6th degree. This will be letter M. There should be 3 blades in there, which there are. And this should have a number 3 on it, I'm assuming. Yes, right there. There's number 3 for 3 degrees. Okay. Letter O is going to be our, if I could find it, our 6-degree blade stop pin. Now, okay, the stop pins I actually saw were in the bags. There's 3 there. And there's 3 there. So each of the bags has a set of stop pins. So that covers O and P. Q is going to be our clear plastic. This is going to go over our launch lug to help reinforce it. Letter R is going to be our, how did I jump so far ahead? I missed a lot of letters, I apologize. Well, we'll just go through it. We've got nose cone here, letter L. Let's see what else we got. We've got our coupler. This is going to be our steering coupler. We've got some green parts. Let me go through these. So here we've got our blade hub. We've got a blade stop. A blade retainer. There should be 3 of these, which there are. And then it looks like 6 little rivets. These are the blade pivot pins. Okay, there are 6 of those. And there should be 6 rubber bands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And oh, you know, I thought I saw something fly off the bench earlier. Number 6. That was a rubber band go flying across. Then we do have our parachute. I believe that's going to be a 12-inch. And then we've got our decals. Just peel off sticky back decals. Okay, there's our warranty information. And here we've got a laser cut cardstock. Probably for a bulkhead, if I'm guessing, but we'll find out. So that wraps that up. I'm looking, there's nothing we're missing. Everything's here. Let me clear off the board and we will begin with building our fin can. Okay, step 1 is gluing the fin can together. I do have my fins and my retainer cap on standby, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 halves of the fin can, and I'm going to do a combination of things here. Notice one side has the holes and the other side has the posts. I'm going to use plastic cement out of the orange tube at all of those joints. And then after I join it together, I'm going to run cement, thin cement, along the seam. I might be able to do a little bit of the inside as well. So let me go ahead and get this out. Now, if you ever open up this orange cement, you know things happen very quickly. So have a paper towel ready to go because sometimes it really likes to pour out. Not so much that time, I lucked out. Okay, so I'm just going to put a dab of glue on each post. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take the other half and I'm going to push the pins into the slots. There, just like that. Okay, wasn't too bad. I'm going to take my thin cement here. I'm going to run a bead right down that seam line. Okay, flip it over, do the other side. Now I am purposely avoiding the threads right now. I'm going to do those from the inside. Okay, now I'm going to come up to the back end here, and from the inside I'm going to work on the, having trouble getting the cement on the brush. There, let that seep into the seam. There we go. Okay, I'm going to hold that closed for a few moments. I'm actually going to thread this on temporarily just to make sure they do line up, which they do. Okay, I'm going to set that down and let that set up for a little bit, and once it's dry we'll come back and we'll install the fins. Okay, now that the fin can has had ample time to dry, I want to take my fins and I'm just going to do some dry fitting here. Just slip the slots into the holes and then slide the fins forward. Let's make sure they do slide all the way and not get impeded by anything. Okay, that's good. Perfect. Okay, now you can do it as is without glue, or they do give the option of using some cement. I'm going to use a little bit of cement just for my own self assurance that it's not going to do anything weird on me. But I'm not going to put a lot of cement. I'm not going to do full coverage. I don't believe it needs full coverage. And then if you do full coverage, you're just asking for making a mess. You're going to end up with probably some glue seeping out, and just kind of uglifying things. So I'm going to take my plastic cement here, and I'm just going to put it in the grooves on both sides. That's where I'm going to apply it. And we'll just line it up and slide it forward, just like that. Perfect. And see, we didn't get any seepage out or anything. Okay, we'll do the same thing to the other two. Okay, and final one. Perfect. And you can verify it looks pretty level when you sit it down. And then we can just go ahead and once again screw the cap on to make sure everything's still in alignment. Now, in theory, if you don't glue the fins on, that cap is actually going to keep the fins from sliding off. But again, I just like the assurance of having a little bit of glue on there. So we're going to set that aside and let it fully dry. Okay, the next step is attaching the fin can to the body tube. Now, before we actually glue it in, there's a couple things we need to do. First off, the first step is gluing this in, but I actually want to wait. I want to skip that step and actually install this clear adhesive over the launch lug, because I think it'd be a lot easier without the fin can in the way. But this is a pretty simple process. You just peel off the backing here and center it. Okay, I want to apologize. That last segment got cut off. I ran out of memory in my phone, but so I've got that fixed. But I did go ahead and finish off installing that clear decal over the launch lug. And what I was unable to show you was I laid it down smooth on the lug first, and instead of just wrapping it over onto the tube, I first pressed it into that crevice using my fingernail, and then I smoothed it out onto the tube. And I did the same thing on this side. So that's just something you may want to do. It kind of keeps things cleaner, and it creates prevents that air bubble from being inside that crevice area there. Okay, the other thing I've done off camera is I did install, well, I can show you how I did it. I temporarily installed the fin can, and I eyeballed it to get the launch lugs right between two fins. There, you can see that there. Once I did that, I made a mark ever so lightly right there in front of the fin. So when I glue this on, I'm going to align this fin up on that little notch. That ensures that we're even there. But in addition to that, I also I used my tube marking guide, and I transferred that mark straight up the tube up to this point right here at the 3/4 inch mark, because we're going to install this brace here, and it's going to install from the top down to that 3/4 inch mark, and then center one of these notches on that center line, because this needs to align with one of the fins. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to glue that up to that line with the notch line kind of in the side. Okay, so we're going to do that as well as glue the fin can on. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this technique, but they do call for using plastic cement to glue the fin can onto the cardboard tube. Again, not the biggest fan of doing that, but that's what they call for. So we're going to go ahead and do it. Ideally, I would probably go with epoxy, but we'll go ahead and do it their way this time, and it'll work. I've done this in the past. It does work. Okay, install our fin can. Kind of move it in and out to get the full thing covered. Okay, I'm going to line up that notch I made with a pencil in line with one of our fins, and we're going to let that cure just as is. Now we're going to flip the rocket over, and we're going to do the same thing with this piece here. Okay, I'm going to run a very, very fine bead, very little on it. Actually, a little further down. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up into the bead of glue, right up to that notch mark I made. We verify things by looking down the tube. You can see that the notch and the fin are in alignment with each other. And I'm actually going to take a Q-tip. Got a little excessive here on the cement. So let me wipe some of that off. There we go. Much better. Okay, so now we're just going to let all that sit and dry and cure, and we should be good. Let me verify we're 3/4 inch from the bottom, right on the money. Perfect. Okay. Okay, next up we're going to assemble the nose assembly. Now, one thing I've decided to do on my own is at the end of this step, they tell you to glue the nose cone into this tube. However, I am not going to do that. Reason being is once you do that, this whole compartment here becomes sealed and inaccessible. And if you ever decide to run payloads, I like to run altimeters, that's not going to be accessible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this unglued, and then when I fly, I can just wrap some masking tape or electrical tape. I've got some white electrical tape that would seal that joint just perfectly and keep it on for flight. So I'm not going to glue this on as they suggest. That being said, we do need to glue this part here right on. They again call for plastic cement, and I'm going to do it that way just because they recommend it, and who am I to argue with them? Okay, so I'm going to run a, let's see, I'm just going to run a bead near the base. Not too thin, not too thick, more of a medium build. I don't want to end up spreading glue everywhere. But go ahead and fit this on. Twisting as I go. And tell you what, I'm going to press this into my workbench to get it flush, just like that, and we're going to let that harden as is. Okay, and it actually kind of created a little bit of a fillet. You can kind of see the glossiness of the glue there. Not the worst thing in the world. So that's in. Now we need to glue on these 3 little adapters here. Not quite sure what these are called, but they're going to glue up into those slots like that. Okay, so I'm going to, again, take some plastic cement, and I'm not going to overload this. I'm just going to put a little bit and slide one in. Okay, do the same thing here. And last one. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. We can start working on the coupler next. So I've got the coupler, and you want to take this little cardstock bulkhead, and let me go ahead and cut this out. cut those little tabs. And then it should just punch right out. Now here they call for wood glue, and it's going to sit on the outer edge. It's not going to go on the inside. It's going to go flush on the end there. So what I'm going to do is, actually I'm going to use this piece of, it's like cellophane paper that we got on the decal, and I'm going to get some wood glue. Ever so slight. Okay. Gonna lay that on. Make sure it's flush all the way around. And I'm actually just going to use my bottle of glue to help hold that down. We're going to let that dry. And once it does, I'm going to sand off the nubs that stick out a little bit outside the tube. Okay, a couple things to note. The plastic cement is dry on the nose assembly. And I've also got this part dried. In addition to gluing on that bulkhead, I did sand around the perimeter just to kind of clean up the nubs, make it a little more contoured, and then I also ran some wood glue in there as a fillet to help strengthen that joint. Now this part, it's 1.5 inches long, the coupler, and they want you to make a mark in the half at the center point. So I already made a pencil line at the 3/4 inch mark right there. Now they're not real descriptive on which way this needs to go, either that way or this way. However, I'm going to make a decision because the rocket's going to be sitting this way. Imagine the nose cone is going to be here. This is going to be expelled out of the main body tube by the ejection charge. This bulkhead is going to help catch that charge. Now if you glue it in this way, there's a chance that that charge could blow through the coupler and blow this bulkhead up and out. Not saying that that would happen, but you're, leaving yourself up for that possibility. However, if you put it in this direction, the blast is going to be hitting that bulkhead, which is actually going to compress that joint. So small chance of that ever, coming apart. In addition, it also gives you an extra 1.5 inches of payload space if you're in fact going to load something in from the top. So I am going to glue it in this direction. So that being said, I'm going to take my wood glue. I'm going to run a bead around the base. Just like so. I'm going to take my coupler. I'm going to put it in, I'm going to rotate, I'm going to pull it back a little bit to get full coverage. Back in, I'm going to look for that mark that I made right there, and I'm going to stop. That's where we're going to let it sit and dry, and hopefully everything will stay straight. Okay, while the coupler is drying, this is a good opportunity for us to glue our little pins into our blades. So with that, I'm going to grab some plastic cement once again, and you'll notice, if I can show you on the camera here, there's a little rectangular center part, and that is going to glue into this square right there that has the same little cutout for that notch. So it's going to fit like that. Okay. Not going to overdo it with the glue for sure. So I'm going to put a little dab of glue in that little notch. Press it in and leave it alone. Okay, I'll do the same thing to these two. There we go. Okay, now very important, before we do anything else, we need to let those dry because I don't want to put any stress on those and have them snap off. So I'm going to leave those for quite a while until they set up. Okay, those little pins are relatively dry. I wouldn't say 100% yet, but we're not going to put any stress on them. But we do need to attach the blades now to the blade mount. Okay, and I've got my attachment pins here, and you'll see how those work here in a second. So I'm going to take each blade, and I'm going to, with the notch facing inward, like this, not outward like that, but inward like this, and you'll see how the holes align. I'm going to press one of these pins through, connecting the blades semi-permanently. Okay, that was relatively easy to do. We'll do this next one. Okay, and we'll do the final one. Just like that. So now, this is how it's going to be in launch configuration. It's going to go up in this direction, and then at deployment, the rubber bands are going to pull from this post to that hook, pull these out to the stops, and then all three of these will open up and will then helicopter down to the ground with the nose cone facing downward. Okay, so again, I'm going to just kind of let everything sit and cure. Don't want to get too anxious and impatient and start messing with things, but we're going to let everything cure, and this thing is about ready to prep for flight. Okay, while the blades are still curing with the plastic cement, we can go ahead and take our decal and go ahead and apply it to the body tube. Now, one thing I like to do for decal application is to cut around the perimeter. Instead of just peeling the decal right off the paper, I cut the paper around the decal because I'm going to apply, I'm just going to attach one edge of it and leave the rest of it still on the paper. That way it doesn't prematurely stick to the cardboard. So what I'm going to do is actually peel up the back end here, and I'm going to cut off maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. Okay, I'm going to kind of fold this a little bit so it's not inclined to lay down on the tube. Okay, now I'm going to get from overhead, I'm going to position the decal right where I want it, and then when it's where I want it, then I'm going to lay this end down. I'm going to move it a little bit closer to me overhead. It's at the bottom of the screen for you. But let me get it as close to straight as I can find. That looks good to me. Actually, I'm going to slide it up a little bit. Okay, that looks good. So now I'm just going to let it touch. Press it out. Now that it's in position, we can hold this end down and peel the backing off. As I press with my thumb pushing forward, it'll remove the decal from the backing. So here I go. Just like that. That looks perfect. Okay, now I'm going to kind of roll from the center outward, pushing any air bubbles or wrinkles out. Perfect. Okay, that is ideal. Now, I normally don't show the process I use for parachutes, and I'm still going to hold to that, but I do want to show you. Let me shake this out so I can get the shock cord out. There it is. So really the only thing that the parachute attaches to is in fact this shock cord. So what I am going to do is I'm going to tie a loop in the shock cord for the parachute to attach to. And I use snap swivels. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the snap swivels have a little clip, and that clip will just clip right onto that loop right there. Now, to avoid any hang-ups, let's cut this tail back to about 1/4 inch and add just a dab of glue into the knot. There we go. My bottle got clogged up a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of massage that with my fingers into the knot. So when it dries, it'll all be semi-permanent. Okay, so we're going to let that dry and then attach my parachute the way I do it at the field, and that'll just slide right into the tube. Let me gather everything up and we'll show the rocket in its completed state. Okay, we're going to attach the rubber bands now to the blades. I'll show you how that works. Each blade has a hook on it. Take, for example, that hook right there. So we're going to loop the rubber band around that hook. We're going to pull it down and wrap it around these 2 pins on the base. Okay, now watch what happens. When I release my fingers on this blade, watch what happens. See how that acts as a hinge and it pulls the blade open. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to the other 2 blades. Okay, now you'll notice, let me see, I don't want to knock anything over, but they should all blossom out here. Perfect. They all did their job. Okay, so when attaching it to the tube, you'll notice now each one of these has these little pins that we glued on earlier. Those are going to slide into these notches on the ring that we glued onto the tube. So let me fold these back in. I'm going to slide the tube onto the coupler. There we go. I'm going to line those pins up with the notches. If you can see right in there, you'll see the pin. And it falls right into the cutout. Okay. I got 2 in, I missed this one, so let me back it out and try to line it again. There we go. And I think we got it. There we go. All right. So all 3 pins are seated in those little notches. The tube is all the way up onto the coupler. I take my nose cone, which I'm not going to attach permanently, but we will do a flyby here showing the completed rocket. So again, starting with the nose cone, I'm going to leave this open so we can install altimeters, payloads, whatever. And then be sure, if you do this, make sure you have some tape to wrap this on. Otherwise, you're going to lose your nose cone and your payload. Okay, moving up the rocket, you'll see our hinge point attachments. The blades, the main body, all the way down to the fin can, the fins, and the engine cap. So I will go in and take a photo of this rocket in its full length, and I will show that at the end of this video for you to see what it looks like, full size. So with that, that wraps up the build of the Roto Rocket. Relatively simple build, no painting involved, 1 decal. Doesn't take long for the glue to dry because we're not using hard epoxies or anything like that. So with that, I want to thank you for watching. If you build one, I hope you enjoy building and flying yours as much as I enjoy building mine. I can't wait to fly it and see how she goes. So until next time, God bless, and we will see you in the next video.